Hey guys, if you need a visual representation of anything we've talked about in this video, we have a gallery put together on our website, thetruthaboutcars.info. Thanks again.
Welcome to the inaugural episode. I'm David Attenborough. Okay, no, seriously. Welcome, one and all, to the inaugural episode of The Truth About Cars. I'm your host, Tyler Kerr, and sitting across from me is my producer, John McManus.
Yes, sir.
There's gonna be more episodes and content to come. We're thinking about a YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe. We don't want you to miss out. The topic for today is tires. We chose tires for episode 1 because industry-wide, there's rampant information that's just false. There's a lot of lies that happen, whether they're on purpose or industry-based is kind of up in the air. You know, once we get through this podcast, you can kind of decide for yourself. But also there's just general misunderstanding because of all the misinformation and industry-led sales tactics. And we're gonna try and clear the air, if you will, to help you save some money in your life. What is a tire? I mean, if you don't know,
Let's go back to the wheel.
basically, the tire is the round rubber part on the bottom of your car that touches the road, right? We all know that. Where the rubber meets the road, that's your tire, right? There's a lot of factors that we could get into, and metrics and measurements and this and that and the other thing. But basically what you need to know is that there are two major roles that your tires play on the system that is your automobile. Number 1 is safety. Tires that are worn out are unsafe. And number 2, ride comfort. Again, this is one of the things that we went back and forth on, whether ride comfort is number 1 or safety is number 1, because tires that are bald can be unsafe when it's raining, or when you're trying to stop or swerve or avoid a squirrel or a child, God forbid, in the road. But the problem with ride comfort is that ride comfort is always. Every time you get in your car and you drive it down the highway or the road or your driveway, you feel how the tires interact with the road and the suspension of your car. And ultimately, it can determine if you do or don't like a vehicle. So in my mind, ride comfort is more important than safety because ideally, safety concerns are far and few between, whereas ride comfort is 100% of the time that you're in your car and driving. A little bit of background briefly so that we all have the same amount of knowledge going in. Tires are made from separate polymer blends that are obviously manufacturer dependent and proprietary for each manufacturer, but in very, very, very broad terms, there's just a couple of ingredients. There's natural rubber, which is derived from the sap of the rubber tree, sometimes referred to as latex. It's like this milky white substance that comes out of the rubber tree when you scar it. And synthetic rubber, which is petroleum based and made from several different types of long chain polymers bonded together with all kinds of sulfuric chemicals and this and that. Black dye, believe it or not, because if black dye was not added to the tires, they would be kind of a grayish white color.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's because people wouldn't be able to get over the visual side of it or because in everybody's mind tires are black, but anyway, they add black dye to tires so that they're dark black instead of light gray. And there's of course several structural components which I won't delve into too deeply, but there's polyester cording at the edges and in the sidewalls. There's steel belts in the center of the tire, layered on top of each other, sandwiched between rubber. And then there's also what's known as a bead wire, which is a high tensile strength steel wire that runs in between the space where the tire meets the wheel. So it's what gives the structural ability for the rubber to hold against the wheel while you're driving it, 10, 20, 200, 70, whatever, miles per hour. None of that would have happened were it not for a gentleman by the name of Charles Goodyear. A lot of you are obviously, right? A lot of you are going to know the name Goodyear because of the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. But Charles Goodyear invented what's known as the vulcanization process, which is basically just the chemical reaction that it takes to turn a blend of synthetic and natural rubber into a flexible, waterproof, moldable application that can be used for anything from tennis balls to car tires. He invented that in 1839.
Damn.
Yeah, long time ago.
Right.
And it was totally by accident, which is the craziest thing, right? He was what you'd call an amateur engineer.
Rubberologist.
Yeah,
Engineer.
rubberologist. I like that. I'm going to say that.
Okay.
He was an amateur inventor and engineer, and he was trying for years, unsuccessfully, I should say, don't quote me on this, but I believe from 1830, to try and turn rubber into a usable product. And he couldn't get it. He just, that something was off and he couldn't figure out the chemical process and the formulation.
So before then, it wasn't used in any products or anything.
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
even in
What?
even in industrial applications.
So seals.
No, none of that.
God.
Seals and like belts for the Industrial Revolution were all made out of leather.
Good God.
Yeah, so
Oh
they would
my
use cow
gosh.
hides and stretch them out and change them and stuff. But anyway, so Charles Goodyear knew that this would be a usable, useful application. One day he was transferring this mound of raw materials into a crucible and he dropped it. But he was standing over his stove. Well, I mean, some people say it was his stove. Some people say it was a lab burner. I mean, I like to prefer that it was his kitchen stove because his wife was mad at him. Anyway, and he dropped it, and immediately the rubber and the sulfur and the synthetic compounds that hit the burner turned into what we now know as vulcanized rubber.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and
complete accident.
Totally by accident. He was
Jeez.
trying to do it chemically, and it was actually a process that was requiring enthalpy input, heat. Anyway,
Okay.
so he discovered that totally by accident, but to his credit, he kept working with heat and rubber and polymers and esters and sulfur. And in 1844, he perfected the vulcanization process and actually filed a patent with the U.S. Patent Office.
So this is roughly like 14 years later. or
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. It took him 5 years to perfect the process that he discovered by accident, but good for him because it spawned the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. And now it's a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and there's obviously competitors now because we have Kumho Tires and Michelin, and Charles Goodyear is the original man about it. And I put that down as a fun fact because I'm a nerd and I thought that was fun. So anyway, now that you know a little bit of the history of rubber and tires, I'd like to just touch on what can happen, right? What happens to your tires while you're driving. There's numerous characteristics that can induce excessive or abnormal wear. But I'm going to put a caveat on this because tires are a wear item. You wear them out when you use your car because roads are freaking tough, man. Anybody who's ever fallen off a motorcycle or bicycle and got some road rash
Right?
can attest to the fact that roadways are like
It's like a cheese
sandpaper.
grater.
Yeah, sandpaper, cheese grater, whatever you want to call it.
It's awful.
It's not good at all. And so imagine if your life was to smash your face against that repeatedly at 40 to 70 miles per hour between 30 degrees Fahrenheit and 105 degrees Fahrenheit for 40,000 miles. And that was just your lot in life.
Every single day.
Every single
my
day,
gosh.
except sometimes the weekends when the person who owns the vehicle that you're part of, like, can you imagine how terrible of a life that would be? Anyway, so tires wear out is my point. That's the nature of consumables. So the caveat on this is it may be none of these, right? Your car might not exhibit any of these problems and it's just using tires because tires are meant to be used up. Just like sneakers, right? You buy a pair of shoes, you wear them to the gym, you go jogging, 6 months, a year and a half later, you need another pair of shoes because they're worn out. So tires are the shoes of your cars, right? It's what touches the road and protects your wheels and your suspension. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So the characteristics that can induce abnormal wear, there's a lot, and I won't get into all of them, but the main ones that you as a consumer should be aware of is, number one, lack of alignment. Vehicles have adjustable suspension components, and technicians, do-it-yourselfers, well, you have to have an alignment machine, so I wouldn't recommend doing it yourself, but mechanics that are do-it-yourselfers and work at a shop with an alignment machine, they're able to adjust it. Now, alignment's kind of a tricky thing because there's actually 3 separate characteristics to an alignment. There's what's known as toe, camber, and caster. The toe adjustment is the most common adjustment. That's if you're driving down the road and your car's pulling either to the left or the right and it's not from road crown, 9 times out of 10, toe adjustment. Your toe is out of adjustment,
Okay,
right?
I've had that before.
Exactly, right? Your tires are either pointed in, pointed out, pointed slightly to the left or right, and I'm talking degrees, not inches where you'd see it, but degrees where a computer can pick it up.
Okay.
There's also camber, which is the kind of lateral orientation to the tire. So if you're looking at your vehicle from the front, you're standing in front of the car looking towards the grille and, you know, all the components. The camber is the top to bottom adjustment of the tires against the side of the car. So if a car were perfectly square, you can have positive camber or negative camber, which means the tires are touching more on the inside of the wheel or more on the outside of the wheel. And then finally we have caster, and I won't spend
Caster?
too much. Yeah, I won't spend too
Never
much
heard of
time
that.
on this one.
Okay.
It's that's why we're doing a podcast, John. So caster is not adjustable on all vehicles, but basically caster is the amount of forward direction or rearward direction that the tire has when viewed from the profile of the vehicle. So say you're standing on the driver's side of the car
Okay.
and you're looking at the front tire. If you imagine that you can see, you've got x-ray vision and you can see through the tire and
I mean,
wheel.
I do, so.
Well, okay, so you don't have to imagine. But
Exactly.
for all of you who aren't like John with x-ray vision, imagine for a moment that you can see through the tire and wheel and you can see the suspension components. If the shock absorber or strut or however your vehicle is set up is at an angle more than 90 degrees faced towards the front of the vehicle, that's considered positive caster.
Ah.
And if it's the opposite way, right? If you're looking at the shock or strut as your baseline measurement and it's less than 90 degrees
So inward.
perpendicular, towards
Okay.
the center of the car where the
Okay.
driver would sit, that's considered a negative caster. Like I say, most cars don't have adjustable caster, so you don't really have to worry about that. But high performance applications, and I know for a lot of years,
Sports cars or something.
there were several German
Okay.
vehicles. I won't name any brands, but there were several German vehicles that
BMW.
had Mercedes that had adjustable caster. And so the technician that you take it to needs to have a slightly better grip on the characteristics of that vehicle to be able to appropriately adjust toe, camber, and caster. Okay, now that you know that, let me do a quick aside. There's a sales tactic used in the industry, which I'll hit on later, where dealers and independent shops and tire stores will give you what's known as free lifetime alignment warranties. You have to ask a couple of questions, because if they're charging you more for a set of tires and including this, free lifetime or over the life of the tires or however they word it semantically, you have to ask the following question. Is it toe only? Or is it toe and camber?
Ah.
Because what a lot of places will do is they'll do what's known in the industry colloquially as a toe and go. They'll put your car up on the alignment machine. So even if you're watching, they're obviously doing their job because you can see them using the alignment machine. And they'll adjust the toe only and kick you out the door.
Ah, so they don't adjust your camber then.
They don't adjust your camber,
Okay.
which is very critical to how the tires operate and wear and
Yeah.
ride comfort. And we'll come back to this all later. But if they do a toe and go, a technician can do that if he's quick in 5 minutes, including the 2.5 minutes it takes to raise and lower the vehicle. A toe and camber adjustment, the quickest I have ever seen it, and I have worked with some very, very exceptional people who are good at their jobs. The quickest I've ever seen a toe and camber is 25 to 30 minutes. 25,
Oh.
25
Okay.
being the absolute quickest I've
that's-
ever seen it done.
That's quite a bit more then.
Yeah, so if you
Damn.
go into a place and they say, "Oh, we're doing your alignment," and they lie to you and say, "We checked your camber and it only took 5 minutes." I mean, they could have checked your camber, and if it's perfectly in alignment, then they wouldn't have done anything. But
If they said they fixed it though in 5 minutes.
if they said they fixed it in 5
no,
minutes,
they're full
it's-
of meh.
they're full of a substance that nobody really likes.
Right.
So, anyway, that was a lot more time than I meant to spend on alignments. But the next thing is poor roadways, and it piles right back into what I was just saying. So, if you live where John and I live, which is the South
Oh.
and the Charlotte metro area, there are some brand new roads which are fantastic and wonderful, and
Feel
we
good.
thank the government for spending our tax money appropriately. But good God Almighty, there are some roads here that might as well be the surface of Mars. They are just cratered and pockmarked and the worst possible teeth jarring, head hitting on the ceiling of the vehicle experience you've ever had in your life.
You could dent your rim on these
You
things.
could dent your rim
It's
on these things
awful.
without even trying. I've lived in a third world country with roads less bad. So, that being said, if you drive over a pothole or a 2x4 that fell off a truck on the freeway, or if you hit a curb or anything like that, your vehicle's alignment can be knocked out of whack.
Ooh.
Even if you just had an alignment 10 minutes ago.
Something as simple as that.
Something
Okay.
as simple as that. So
Ah,
you
damn.
pay $100 to get your car aligned at your favorite tire shop. You drive out of the parking lot and you misjudge the curb and you hit it. And then after you hit the curb, you smack a pothole. And then after you're done with hitting the pothole, a truck drops some lumber in the road and you run over a couple of 2x4s. Your vehicle is no longer in alignment. And that's not the fault of the shop. That's not the fault of the manufacturer. That's not the fault of anybody except the forces of serendipity and randomness that you have just encountered 3 times after you spent $100. So just know that, and it's not always the technician's fault. Poor roadways are the #1 enemy of alignments and tires. I'm just going to say that.
Okay.
Flat out, full stop. Ask anybody and they'll reinforce it as long as they know what they're talking about.
All right, so I have a question for you then.
Tell me, John.
Assuming you live in an area with terrible roadways.
Sure.
And your alignment is obviously out of whack, would it be worth fixing that alignment only to later completely ruin it because you're driving on the same roadway?
100%.
Okay.
So, in my opinion, and take it with a grain of salt because I'm just one man and I've just seen what I've seen, it is definitely worth it to check up on your alignments. Because even if you drive on terrible roads that are like the surface of Mars, you can mitigate the effects. Right? Because not every time that you get an alignment, 10 minutes later, you're going to knock your car out of alignment.
Of course. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll make it like 6 months. And that'll totally have been worth it because if you drive 10,000 miles in 6 months, you got 10,000 miles of even wear on your tires. While it is something to be mindful of, cars aren't as fragile as I'm making them sound. These are all, of course, worst case scenarios, but you know, they can absorb some impacts. They have shock absorbers that literally absorb the shock of the road. So
okay.
there is an extent to which bad roads won't necessarily knock your vehicle out of alignment, but that's a factor to know when you're upset that you just spent $100 and now you have to spend $100 more.
Absolutely. Okay.
The third one that I'm going to touch on is not following proper tire rotation guidelines. If the other two weren't so important, this would be the first, because holy freaking cow, there are so many people that don't follow tire rotation guidelines. There's 2 factors at play here. The manufacturers of the tires themselves have a recommendation, which I'll get to in just a second, but also the vehicle manufacturer has a tire rotation recommendation as well, because they've designed the car, they know what it can and can't handle. Because of that, they've recommended that this is how it should be. And I'll give you the perfect example. I'm going to name a brand. Hopefully we don't get sued because I'm not saying anything slanderous. Toyota, since like 2012, I think, have had what's known as a 5,000 mile or 6-month maintenance interval. I stress the word maintenance because it's not an oil change. When your light in your Toyota comes on, it literally says the words maintenance required. And people,
that.
yeah, and people think by and large that means oil change. Toyotas, don't quote me, but circa 2011 or 12, have all come from the factory with full synthetic oil and full synthetic oil filters, which we will touch on next episode. They have both of those items, and the oil change interval on most Toyotas is 10,000 miles.
10,000 miles.
10,000 miles. But I know what you're thinking,
God.
John. Why does the light come on at 5,000 miles or 6 months when the oil change interval in the Toyota manual for most Toyotas is 10,000 miles or every 12 months? Well, the maintenance required at 5,000 miles or 6 months is a tire rotation.
So it's just a timer telling you.
It's just a timer.
Switch the tires.
Yeah, to tell you switch the tires or do an oil change and switch the tires.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So a lot of Toyota owners who don't go to the dealership, and I don't think dealerships are the be-all, end-all of service, but a lot of Toyota owners who go to independent or franchise or third-party shops, they'll roll up and they'll say to the person, "Hey, quick lube attendant, I've got a maintenance light."
Okay.
What does that mean? And the quick lube attendant, who's not a Toyota technician will say, oh, that means you need an oil change.
Oh no.
Which isn't a lie. They think that's what it means. But the fact of the matter is,
There's only a 50% chance that that's the truth.
yeah, with a Toyota specifically.
Oh, no.
Right? So anyway, tire rotations are critically important for a host of factors. Front tires wear different than rear tires because obviously the front tires are the ones turning. They're taking different forces of gravity. When you brake hard, the front tires absorb that impact.
Yeah,
When you
yeah.
turn left or right, the suspension absorbs to the left or to the right on the tires themselves and the suspension. Front wheel drive cars use tires more rapidly on the front than rear wheel drive cars. But rear wheel drive cars, while your rear tires are driving you, your front ones are absorbing the impact of turning and braking.
Oh.
So you've got it. If you don't rotate your tires based on your manufacturer or the tire manufacturer's recommendations, you are going to blow through tires
Like crazy.
quicker than you would if you were following the recommendations. And I'll get to that
Okay.
in a second.
Okay.
There's also overinflation and underinflation. That's exactly what it sounds like. If there's too much or too little air in the tires, it can have a negative impact. If there's too little air in the tires, it'll deflate and the center won't hit the ground as hard as the outside edges, and the outside edges will wear quicker. If it's overinflated, the center of the tire will take the brunt of the impact and wear out the center of the tire quicker. And every car manufacturer, man, I should have looked up the year. Every car manufacturer from I think 2005 up has included what's called a tire inflation placard on the inside of the driver door.
Ah.
Yeah,
Okay.
on the
I've
frame
seen
of
that.
the vehicle. So if you're in America and you open the door with your left hand, the tire placard is going to be somewhere near the tip of your right hand's fingers. Door placards will tell you exactly how much air is supposed to be in the tires and which tires your vehicle was designed to run with, which is critical. If you put the wrong size tire on your car, it can change way more than you could have ever anticipated, and the tires will wear quickly, and your suspension will wear more quickly, and it won't be nearly as comfortable as it used to be from the factory. Don't get me started on putting aftermarket tires on a car that are the wrong size. Finally, when in doubt, bust it out,
Yeah.
right? Like,
All right.
the owner's manual is your friend in this regard. And I don't mean when you buy a new car, you should put on your reading glasses and, pop a bottle of sherry and start reading till your heart's content. I mean, if you've ever got a question, the engineers who designed your vehicle thought, hey, they might not know as much about engineering as me and my several degrees. So I'm going to put all the pertinent information in this neat little book that fits in the glove box. So when in doubt, John,
Bust it out.
bust it out.
Absolutely.
The owner's manual. Take a look, see what it says. Follow their recommendations, please. Please follow their recommendations. I cannot say that enough.
My dad has a saying. He says, you can't outthink the factory. Do you agree
Right.
with that?
They designed the thing. They thought of everything.
All right. All right.
Well,
there you
unless
go.
they initiate a recall. But
true.
they
That's
thought
true.
of
And that will happen.
They thought of 99.7% of things.
Unless it breaks.
But no, you can't outthink the factory. That's a perfect example because they have thought of all of these things. They've tested them exhaustively. They've put them on road courses. They've driven them cross country before.
in the cold and the
In
heat.
the cold, in the heat, before anybody's ever seen this car, it's gone through rigorous testing and they know what's best for the thing that they built. It's their baby. They created it. They know what to do. Just listen to them, for gosh sake. Now that we've gone way more in depth than I was planning on doing it on tires and alignment and inflation and this and that, and Charles Goodyear, this next segment is what these episodes are about. If you didn't listen to our intro or see our announcement on Instagram, or if you don't know somebody who knows John or myself, I don't have a lot of friends, so you probably don't, but John knows a lot of people. Basically, what we're trying to do here is save you and your money from, honestly, from lies, but also from ignorance, because there are very well-meaning people out there who just don't know what they don't know. And there are also not well-meaning people who lie straight to your face. I've had it happen to me. What we're trying to do here is arm you with the tools and the knowledge that you might not otherwise have so that you can hopefully overcome these tactics and sales pressures, and keep some money in your freaking pockets. Jeez
Absolutely.
Louise. Who doesn't want another $500 in their pocket, right?
Exactly,
Like,
man.
If you have to buy tires that you don't need, if you got a cheap car, it's $500. If you've got a performance
Oh, yeah.
car, that's $2,000. You know
My
what I mean?
Z4 that I owned at one point, it was $1,200. $1,200.
John's being purposefully vague, but I'm pretty sure he wrecked and totaled his Z4.
How do you know this?
And
Oh my God.
if I could go one step further, it's because his tires were bald
Oh,
and
no.
didn't shed any water
That wasn't why. That wasn't
while
why.
driving on
That
the
wasn't why.
freeway. Anyway.
That was my 350Z. So
Oh,
I'm-
excuse me.
So I'm still at risk. It's still my fault.
Oh, I'm very sorry. I didn't realize that there was a different car that you had totaled. 1,000 apologies to you and your family, sir. John's shenanigans aside, there are several industry tricks that I've been privy to. I've been taught them. I've gone to several seminars from different dealerships that I've worked for and franchises. And I gotta say, at the time, they didn't sicken me as much as they do now that I reflect on it, because in the moment, you're only thinking about your money and your bottom line, and me as a salesperson, what my commission will be, and not of the well-being of a single mother or a father,
old couple.
an old couple who's on
Yeah.
a fixed income. You're not thinking of that. You're thinking about the money in your pocket, and that's the problem with commission-based selling. But there's an episode that we've got in the works. When it comes down to it, tires, they are a major safety item. This is me to you. This is Tyler Kerr, the host of The Truth About Cars, telling you that the tires on your vehicle protect you and the suspension of your vehicle, and they are a safety component, whether it's raining or snowing or there's a little bit of rocks or dirt on the road, any number of a dozen different things. The tires on a vehicle are important. I cannot state that enough. But oftentimes what will happen when you go to a dealership, an independent shop, a franchise location, there is way too much emphasis placed on how much they affect your safety. And what I mean by that is there's several tactics that can be used as sales techniques. I was taught by a major tire distributor that one of the key techniques that can increase the sales of your shop of tires overall is emotional manipulation.
Ooh.
Yeah. And what I mean by that is,
We're getting mental here.
yeah, this
Okay.
is the exact, I mean, I'm paraphrasing because this was like 3 or 4 years ago. I don't remember exactly what the lady said. If a woman is driving the car into your shop and you see evidence of children in the back seat, whether it's spilled cereal on the floor,
My God.
I know, I'm sick just thinking about it. Spilled cereal on the floor, baby teething items, car seats. If the kids are in the back of the car, I mean, it's a pretty dead giveaway that a person has kids is that there's kids in the
absolutely.
car. You should appeal to her emotional aspect as a mother protecting her children. And the verbatim quote is, "Ma'am, you wouldn't drive your kids in a vehicle with unsafe tires, would you?"
You give her no choice.
You give her no choice. And
oh my God.
that's low. I mean, we all know salesmen are bad, and I feel I'm gonna have to go take a nap. I don't feel good about this at all. But that is the lengths at which facilities will go to separate you from your money. And there are times I've personally witnessed it where the tires on a minivan are unsafe 100%, and a mother needs to know these things, right? Because
Absolutely.
She's got a full-time job looking after those kids. She can't worry about her freaking tires on her minivan.
Mm-hmm.
Too many times people over-exaggerate or under-measure. That's the number one tactic that I've seen is emotional manipulation. And it doesn't just have to be a woman, right? Fathers care about their children too. It's one of the things that needs to be dialed way back. And I think if we add a little bit of transparency and people see it, they'll be better equipped to handle it and, take a couple of breaths and, your children aren't going to die, right? I mean, they're tires and they protect you, but as long as you're a safe and prudent driver, just don't fall for it is what I'm trying to get at. The next thing is tread depth mismeasuring. This happens all the time. There are several tricks and we'll put a couple on our website. You can gauge the level of tread on a tire. Tires have what are known as wear bands molded into them.
Yeah.
If your tire tread reaches the wear band, we'll have pictures on our website and we'll try to put some stuff on Instagram so it makes a little bit more sense. If your tires are touching or about touching the wear bands, they're done. You need new tires, right? Like, that's
Absolutely.
just hard fact. There's no two ways about it. But what happens at some places is that they will measure the tread depth from the top of the wear band. And the
From the top.
From the top of the wear band. And the wear band itself is like this little bump. You can see it if you go look at a tire. Is this little bump that protrudes from the center of the tire tread about 2/32 of an inch. So 2/32 to 3/32 is where tires need to be replaced. As you can imagine, if you're measuring from something that's already 2/32 higher than the rest of the tire, you could have a tire that's theoretically 7/32, which is well within the safe area. But if you measure minus those 2/32, you're at 5/32 or 4/32, and suddenly your tires that are still good for another, who knows, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 miles, now you have to shell out $8, $9, $1,000 just to get your tires back to where they need to be. So mismeasuring is terrible. I've seen technicians falsify reports because technicians get what are known in the industry as spiffs, which is like a cashback incentive for every set of tires that they sell. Exaggerating abnormal wear. Say you've got an SUV, a full-size SUV, not a crossover, and they're freaking heavy, right? And they wear tires out quickly. That's just a fact. For a little bit, the tires were misaligned, and they've got a little bit more rapid edge wear than center wear. Let's say you've also gotten the tires aligned since then, and everything's hunky-dory, but you go to this dealership or this independent shop or this franchise and they say, oh, look at this outside edge wear. That means your tires are bad. What they're doing is they're exaggerating the abnormal wear patterns that can be fixed with some maintenance, like an alignment that takes into effect toe and camber, not just toe.
Okay.
Or it's not nearly as bad as they're saying, and they're just pointing at a tire trying to confuse you because, I mean, I'm an industry, I don't know if expert's the right word, but I've got some freaking experience. And even sometimes when they're pointing at tires and pointing rapidly, you get lost in what they're saying because your eyes can't focus on one set of a black on black tire with deformities immediately, right?
Absolutely.
Right? So, I mean,
it's all a tactic.
It's all a tactic. It's all a sales tactic. So just have your head on your shoulders and just pay attention. The next thing is false upselling of all 4 tires. I don't necessarily advocate purchasing one tire. Like if you've got a nail in the sidewall and the tread's still good, you know, you can get away with purchasing one tire.
Yeah,
but ideally you should replace tires in sets, right? Like so the front axle you should replace as a set and the rear axle you should replace as one set.
Now, would you get a deal if you were to purchase 4 at a time?
So sometimes.
Okay.
It depends on the specials that are being run, but sometimes they'll try to convince you to like buy 3 tires, get the 4th tire free, or $100 off a set of 4 tires, or something like that. And those are tactics to get you to spend more money right now today.
Even if you may not need it.
Even if you may not need it. So what I've seen a lot is, and let's go back to the rotation example, some guy that thinks he knows more about tires than a tire manufacturer. Oh, and I never said that. A quick aside, tire manufacturers, by and large, recommends a tire rotation either every 6 months or between every 5 to 8,000 miles. That's, you know, some manufacturers say 7,500, some say 5,000, some say 8,000, right? And you know, everybody's different in between. So let's say you know more than a manufacturer and you've decided that you've never rotated your tires because it was a waste of $19.95 or $14.95 or whatever the special was at the place that you went. And now what's happened is your front tires on your front wheel drive minivan are worn out and your rear tires are still good. Your front tires are at 2/32 and your rear tires are at 9/32. And all of a sudden, the person who's talking to you about your vehicle and the technician report that they show you says you need a set of 4 tires. And you don't know. I mean, what does it matter to you if it's 9/32 or 32/32 or 15/32?
Yeah, what does that
what does that increment mean
to a person?
And almost nobody will say, well, sir or ma'am, tires range from 9/32 to 11/32 when brand new, and when they reach 3 or 2/32, it's time to replace them. Almost nobody goes in that, hard because they're trying to upsell you a set of 4 tires, even though you could get away with just replacing the front 2 and getting an alignment. And then subsequently, for the love of God, rotating the tires at the manufacturer recommended intervals. So that's a tactic that I've seen, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, I've used it before. I'm not proud of it, but sometimes you just want a couple extra dollars at the end of a month.
You gotta make some money, you know?
You gotta make the money, and sometimes you judge people falsely on their face. You know, oh, well, they're driving a car that cost $85,000. Of course they can afford a set of 4 tires for $1,000. Bad though that is, and a thing that you shouldn't do, is it happens all the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And even people who don't have the money to do it, they get scared into purchasing the tires. The final thing I'm gonna add is about a tire hazard warranty. A lot of independent facilities and even dealerships are using what are known as third-party warranties to sell you what's known as road hazard protection. I'm not gonna lambast one specific one or praise one specific one, because by and large, it's a crapshoot. Some of them work really well and they are totally worth the extra $15. And some of them, you'll be banging your head against the wall while you're on hold for 47 minutes trying to reach the manufacturer. It's a grab bag. It could go either way.
So what does that mean, hazard protection?
Excellent question, John.
Thank you.
Hazard protection, it's an insurance policy that protects you from hazardous road debris that will puncture a tire.
Okay, so say a nail or something like that.
Let's say you get a nail in the repairable portion of the tire. We won't get into that because that's like a whole other discussion about repairable areas on a tire and not. We'll put some stuff on our website. But let's say you get a nail in the dead center repairable spot of a tire. These road hazard warranties will pay the price of the repair. So at a lot of facilities, to repair a tire, it's between $20 and $40, right? Dealerships are usually on the higher end because they have more overhead. Independent repair facilities are usually at the lower end because they have less overhead. The road hazard warranty, 9 times out of 10 will cover that. Some road hazard warranties are really excellent insofar as if you have a puncture in a non-repairable portion of the tire, they will pay for a prorated amount of the tire. So say you've got a tire that's rated by its manufacturer for 40,000 miles, and you're at, I don't know, 20,000 miles. So you've used 50% of the tire, but in a perfect world, there's 50% remaining. Some of these warranties will pay for 50% of the cost of a new tire. Right? So like if the tire if the tire is $200 and it's 50% used, they'll pay for 50% of the new tire, which is $100. Usually labor and taxes are left to the person. So if they're paying for 50%, it's actually more like they're paying for 40% and you're paying for 60% after taxes and fees. But these people and these advisors, well-meaning though they are, or liars though they are, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I've done this before, so I'm going to throw myself under the bus. They lie that that's included in the price when actually it's usually $5 to $15 additional per tire.
So you have to pay kind of a deposit.
So you got to pay like a deposit. You got to, just like an insurance policy on your car, right? You pay, I don't know, $80, $100 a month to protect your car.
And here's my question before we get to anything else. How much would it be, say, in a repairable area to repair a tire?
$30, $40 at most.
So you're already paying, almost half.
Half, right?
From the deposit.
Yeah, you're paying half from buying this warranty. And just like all insurance, it's a business and they need to make money.
Absolutely.
The only way they make money is by stretching the truth to fit the narrative. And anyway, what can happen is they'll include the price of the road hazard protection in the tire, but won't break it down for you. So they'll go, oh, this set of, XYZ brand is $175 a tire. So a set of 4 is blah, right? When really what they mean is it's $150 a tire, but we're tacking on this hidden fee that does get you road hazard protection, but we're not necessarily telling you that because we're pretending like it's implied and in the cost of the tire.
I got you. Snaky, man.
Yeah, snaky. In recent years, there's not a lot of margin for wholesalers or retailers on tires because of the internet. There are several websites you can go to and you can buy tires darn near at cost because these websites sell them in such volume that they can pass the savings on to you. But then, of course, you got to get them mounted and balanced. And so it's not a true reflection. But anyway, what happens is people go, well, you're selling this tire for $200. I can get it online for $160, right? That's a $40 difference. That's significant. They can't really pad the pricing anymore. So there's not a lot of wiggle room to negotiate, but there are these hidden fees that if you know about them, you can ask the right questions. And, on a set of 4 tires, $15 per tire, that's $60. You might be able to save $60 by opting out of the road hazard protection. It just depends on the company, right? Read the pamphlet that they give you because some are better than others and some are garbage. And please, God, read the fine fine print before you spend the money, because chances are you won't need a road hazard protection plan. But if you do, and you paid for it and you elected to pay for it knowingly, you want to know that it's going to cover you when it needs to cover you.
Yeah.
In those warranties, there's also something from a manufacturer called I personally call it a tread life estimate. So like, let's say you're looking at a pair of, W tires from W Manufacturing Co. And on the tires, it says 80,000 mile lifespan. When they say that, 80,000 miles of life is under damn near perfect conditions.
Right. Perfectly paved roads.
Perfectly paved roads.
No hazardous materials.
No hazardous materials. No off-roading. No peeling out. No taking turns too sharp. No forgetting to rotate the tires, none of that. And it's perfect condition. So what happens a lot of times is a salesman will say, oh, well, these tires are rated for 80,000 miles, so you won't have to buy these until your car has whatever your mileage is now plus 80,000, which is patently false. There's no...
They're just trying to make it simple to add up in your head.
They're trying to make it sound like a better deal than it is.
A
lot of times, if you don't take care of your tires or if you have rough roads, you're lucky to get half of what the manufacturer says they are possible to achieve. That's the caveat. When you look at the information, it's got a couple of asterisks near it. I've never tried to say the plural of asterisk, which I think might just be asterisk. Anyway. It's got a couple of those next to it, and on the back of the thing it'll say under blah 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 perfect conditions with laboratory testing on a closed course with a professional driver, right? So these are all things to consider. I'm not saying tire manufacturers are lying to you. I'm just saying that if you take care of your tires properly, they'll last longer than if you abuse them, just like anything. Your marriage will last longer if you don't abuse it, right? I mean, like, that's just a fact. Everything in the world is like that.
It's the truth.
I mean, everything's that way. So don't be fooled by a tread rating either, right? If they say, oh, these are 70,000 miles rated. That doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get 70,000 miles. And if you drive your car hard and don't rotate the tires and you only get 30,000 miles out of it, good luck trying to get a refund from the manufacturer.
Oh, that's never going to happen.
Because that is
no way.
I have tried to help people several times do that, and it never happens because they go, oh, well, can you send me the records of your tire rotations? And they go, oh, well, I've only rotated them once. And they go, oh, click. And they hang up the phone because you didn't do what they said to do to take care of your tires. So
now, assuming you did follow their planning to the T, do you think there would be a chance that they would replace those tires for you for free?
I've seen it happen.
Really?
I've seen it happen.
Wow.
So sometimes, I mean, humans aren't perfect, machines aren't perfect. I've seen what are known as casting defects occur in tires where a person will buy a set of 4 tires. 5,000 miles later, one of them will be at 2:30 seconds and the rest will still be at 10:30 seconds.
Okay.
And
so they're bulging in one area then.
Yeah, or they're worn out or they're bulging or any number of things. And I've seen manufacturers say, oh, we're sorry, that's on us. Have this free tire. Thank you for being a customer. So it goes both ways, but you've got to treat the material the way that it's designed to be treated.
Absolutely.
And that way you have a little bit more leeway with the manufacturer. They're all sales techniques and they're all not necessarily lying, but stretching the truth to fit a narrative.
As much as they can, too.
Yeah, where the narrative is, please spend your money so that I can have a bigger bonus. And we're just trying to minimize that for you because life is freaking complicated enough without having to worry about well, for most people that don't live in a major city, or even a lot of people that do live in a major city, your vehicle is your number one artery, right? I mean, if your car breaks down, you're late for work, or you miss work completely, or, Uber drivers, God forbid, you can't go to work. You know what I mean? It's important to take care of your stuff, and we want you to have the tools in your arsenal to know what needs to be or what doesn't necessarily need to be done. In summation, tires are definitely important to the proper operation and, like I said earlier, the comfort of your vehicle. And your best resource is just be vigilant. Take into account rebates. Sometimes they run tire sales, but that can be a double-edged sword. Like I said earlier, if you only need 2 tires, but they're having a special on 4 tires, of course they're going to try and get you to spend more money on the 3rd one to get the 4th one free, or on the 4th one to get a $100 Visa prepaid card or a Master, whatever the deal is. Do your homework. Even if you're just in the lobby after they tell you your car needs XYZ tires, if you opt for the cheapest possible option, opinion, the vehicle's ride characteristics are going to be noticeably more terrible. I'll just say that. They're going to be noticeably different in a bad way. And even though you saved a few dollars, you're going to be really upset with your car and unfortunately the repair facility, because you're going to think that they cheated you somehow.
Yeah,
even though
yeah.
you get what you pay for, and you paid for cheap tires and you got cheap tires. Compare, don't hate your car. My hope here is that this entire series, our plan is to get you to have what I would consider a healthy amount of skepticism. You don't want to overreact when people tell you things, because there's a lot of professionals in the industry who are just down to earth, plain good people who are trying to get you what you need and make a living day in and day out. But there's also wolves in sheep clothing that you have to be careful for, and there are just outright liars. So if you have a healthy amount of skepticism and an appropriate amount of base knowledge, you can ask these questions, and knowledge is really the only antidote for misinformation and outright lies. In upcoming episodes, we're going to be tackling much more. Our episode 2 is going to be about oil changes. If you think you know as much as I do about oil changes, don't listen, but I promise you that you don't. So if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to subscribe. We would love it if you would. I'm your host, Tyler Kerr, and thank you for listening to The Truth About Cars.
When in doubt, bust it out. Boom.